There's no doubt Disney is the creator of the best animated movies in history.
Girl.
But did you know that even in their finest films, Disney has made some pretty incredible mistakes?
Open your eyes.
This is where our magic comes from?
In the scene where Riley is eating with the girls from the Firehawks team, we see one of them holding a soda cup. Then we get a look inside Riley's head. When the movie cuts back to Riley's perspective, you can see that the soda cup in that girl's hand has completely disappeared without a trace. Unless she drank it super fast, which doesn't seem likely since she was talking. This is a small continuity error. But don't worry, this isn't the only mistake you'll discover today. I'm about to show you 16 incredible mistakes you probably never noticed in Disney movies. So hop on board, because another Cinewave is about to begin. When Riley arrives at the hockey camp, she takes a good look around the place. In this scene, none of her friends are carrying a bag, but in the next scene, a big bag suddenly appears next to them. Could it be some kind of magic backpack that turns invisible? That would be awesome, but it's much more likely that the animators just forgot to include the bag in the previous shot. I can't blame them. Between perfecting the stunning animation of the film, it's no wonder a few small mistakes like this slipped through. In Encanto, there's a scene where several kids run through a hallway right behind Mirabel. This would be completely normal, except for the fact that where the kids came from, there's just a wall, no hallway or open door. That means they basically walk through the wall as if they were ghosts. Or maybe Mirabel really is the only one in town without powers, because there could be a bunch of kids running around phasing through solid objects like Kitty Pryde from X-Men. Also in Encanto, during the dinner where Mariano plans to propose to Isabella, something else magically appears. This time it's Antonio's toucan. At first, the bird isn't anywhere to be seen, but when the scene cuts, it suddenly appears perched on Antonio's chair like it was always there. The funny thing is, the toucan disappears again shortly afterward, and no one seems to notice. I definitely wouldn't want a bird like that teleporting around. Imagine the fear if it vanished one day and never came back. Now let's talk about one of Disney's recent big hits, Turning Red. After showing the temple to visitors, May and her mom say goodbye, and the guests leave. They close the gates right after the last person exits, but something odd happens. The locks appear to be fastened immediately after the gates close. How could they lock up so quickly when we can only hear the sound of the gate itself closing? In the first Frozen movie, there's a scene where Anna and Kristoff are riding a sleigh down a mountain. Anna's hair is flying back from the speed and wind, but when the camera zooms in on him, her hair is suddenly neat and not blowing at all. That doesn't make any sense, since the sleigh is still moving fast and the wind couldn't have died down that quickly. The only explanation would be a small time jump between the two scenes, but honestly, it looks like the moments happen one after another. It's easier to accept this as just another continuity mistake. So what do you think? Do you still enjoy these movies, even with these funny little errors? If so, leave a comment below with #mistakes, and I'll check it out later. Right at the beginning of Moana, when our heroine is still just a little girl, something pretty strange happens. And no, I'm not talking about the ocean waves moving to interact with Moana, since we know she has a deep connection with the sea. The weird thing here is related to a fish's imprint left in the sand, which disappears completely in the very next scene for no apparent reason. But that imprint isn't the only thing that mysteriously appears and disappears in Moana. One of the most iconic features of Maui, the god, is his mighty hook that allows him to shapeshift into any kind of animal, like a hawk, a shark, and even a giant whale. Not to mention, he said he once used it to pull the sun itself. How crazy is that? As you might have guessed, apparently the hook can turn invisible too. There's one scene where Maui is holding it, but in the very next moment, it's just gone. The truth is, this is probably just an error since there wasn't anywhere for Maui to stash his hook, and I highly doubt invisibility is one of its powers. It's becoming pretty clear that things appearing and disappearing is quite common in animated films, considering how challenging it is to create such smooth and detailed animations without forgetting something. But let's be real, Moana is still one of the most gorgeous Disney films out there. In Elemental, we get the opposite scenario. At one point, while Ember is chasing Wade, running through various parts of the city, she suddenly pulls out an umbrella to soar through the air and increase her chances of catching up to him. The big question is, where on earth did Ember Lumen get that umbrella? It's a pretty large object to just pull out of nowhere, and she's only wearing a dress. When Ember finishes making deliveries and returns to her family's shop, she parks her motorcycle right outside. However, in the next scene, there's no motorcycle to be seen. What's funny is this isn't the only time her motorcycle pulls a disappearing act. The same thing happens when she parks it outside Wade's family apartment, only for it to magically reappear when Ember and Wade are ready to leave. I'm starting to think the motorcycle has a life of its own and likes to go on little rides when Ember's not looking. If you thought Inside Out 2 was done with weird mistakes, think again. During the hockey game at the beginning, something odd happens in the crowd. For some inexplicable reason, there are two identical men sitting on opposite sides of the stands. Sure, they could be twins, but they're seated so far apart as if they didn't even come together to watch the game. Plus, they're wearing the exact same clothes. So is it just a crazy coincidence? Or did Disney reuse the same character model to make the crowd look fuller? Well, if they thought we wouldn't notice, they were very wrong. If you want to see more amazing videos about Disney's best films and so much more, make sure to hit that subscribe button. That way, you won't miss our daily uploads. In the same dinner scene from Encanto that we talked about earlier, there's another odd little detail. When the dinner goes out of control and the characters start using their powers unintentionally, there's a shot showing the center of the table completely empty. But that doesn't make any sense at all if you look at the previous shots from just a few seconds ago, where the table is packed with plates and food. I'm pretty sure no member of the Madrigal family has the superpower to vacuum up all that food without anyone noticing. In The Incredibles, one of the funniest moments is when Mr. Incredible starts putting on his superhero suit while in his car. But there's a little inconsistency in that scene, as you can see the car's GPS showing that it's practically right next to Adeline Street. Then Mr. Incredible starts changing into his suit for several seconds while the car keeps moving at high speed. However, when the GPS appears again after all that, somehow the car still hasn't passed Adeline Street. How did that happen? Was the car just zigzagging instead of heading to its destination? If that were the case, wouldn't it have been easier for Mr. Incredible to just pull over and change in peace? Of course, Disney didn't really think about that, since it was just a little animation mistake. In Inside Out 2, we get another one of those moments where objects just vanish. This time, it happens when Riley and her friends stop in front of the coach's office and start talking about the notebook. You can see a clipboard next to the notebook in the background, but in the next shot, the clipboard is gone and it stays missing, until it reappears when Riley sneaks into the office at night to check the notebook. That's pretty weird. Maybe the clipboard fell and someone put it back later? That seems like the most realistic explanation for this plot hole. What do you guys think? In one of the scenes from Encanto that shows young Mirabel with her grandma, you can spot a small guitar resting against the wall by itself. But then, out of nowhere, a ball suddenly appears next to the guitar just a few seconds later. When you see stuff like this, you might start thinking it's some kind of supernatural manifestation from the Madrigal family's magical house. However, that definitely doesn't explain the next funny mistake I'm about to tell you. I can sort of accept the excuse that the Madrigal's magical house makes objects and toucans appear and disappear between shots, but one thing that's harder to swallow is Abuela vanishing in a matter of seconds. This happens during the song that introduces the Madrigal family. One moment the grandmother is standing next to Isabella, then Isabella makes a bunch of flowers appear around her, and Abuela simply disappears. It's a pretty wild mistake, but also kind of hilarious. Honestly, I find these little mistakes kind of funny, and I don't think they make the movies any worse. Plus, you really need sharp eyes to catch them, and I bet you saw a bunch that you had never noticed before in this video. We've got 2 more videos on screen. Just click on one of them to keep the fun going. Thanks, and see you next time.